French police have moved more than 1,600 migrants from the tents in which they lived in northern Paris. Operations like this happen every winter as temperatures drop, but this one comes just a day after the government announced tighter immigration rules. While the migrants were told to pack up their belongings and board buses early this morning, the government says the migrants, including families with children, will be temporarily rehoused in nearby gymnasiums. But those who aren't eligible for asylum will be sent back overseas. Well, we can speak to journalist David Chazan now, who's currently at one of the public gymnasiums where migrants have been moved, and he joins us live. David, good to see you there. What's it like right there, right now? What's the atmosphere like?
Well, it's quite subdued, Tokes. There are about 100 migrants who've been brought here. Most of them are young men. They're mostly either Afghans or sub-Saharan Africans. And they seem quite contented for the time being just to stay here. It's warm. It was heavy rain this morning when they were cleared from the rather squalid, dirty camps around Porte de la Chapelle in northern Paris. So it's a lot cleaner, nicer and warmer here. But officials, Paris officials, have already been expressing misgivings about this operation because, according to the mayor of Paris, this is the 59th time that a migrant camp has been cleared in Paris since 2015. And the mayor, Anne Hidalgo, says that usually what happens is after a few days or weeks, the migrants simply start drifting back to the camp, and it's the same situation as before.
Well, we could see some of those scenes, David, from the operation which took place very early this morning. It seemed, according to reports, that people were mostly cooperative. Have you had a chance to speak to any of those people who've been moved, and what have they been telling you?
Well, I've spoken to some of them and they say they're fine with being here for now, but they'll see how it goes after a few days. However, what both the migrants and officials at the Paris City Hall have told me is that several hundred of the migrants who were at the camp had already left before the clearance began. And the officials suggested that these were mainly people who'd had their fingerprints taken when they landed in other EU countries like Greece or Italy, and under EU law can therefore be sent back to those countries. And it's thought that to avoid that happening, those people had already left the camp before the police got there to clear it.
David, we can see there's hardly anybody in that gym actually where you are right now. So what's going to be the procedure over the next few days, and what sort of things are on offer for them there?
Well, basically a warm place to sleep. There'll be food, as you can see behind me. They've got camp beds, and all of that is a lot more comfortable than sleeping outdoors. And some of them are saying they're quite content for now to be in the warmth. But they're not being held here. This is not a retention centre, so they're allowed to come and go freely. And a lot of them have been going out and exploring the area. We're in a suburb of Paris, just north of the city centre here, and so they're being allowed to come and go pretty much as they please. And so if they wanted to leave, there would be nothing to prevent them from doing that. There's no element of compulsion here.
Journalist David Chazan there at that public gym where migrants from Paris have been moved to. Thank you. Now, the French Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, had warned just yesterday that such tent camps would be raised. The government also plans to introduce quotas for migrants and to limit access to non-urgent healthcare for asylum seekers. Well, to discuss some of these measures, I'm joined now by Paul Alauzi. He's a project manager at the medical charity Médecins Sans du Monde, I should say. Well, thanks for taking time to speak to us here on the programme. Yesterday we heard, as I was saying there, from the Prime Minister, who as part of these measures announced that newly arrived asylum seekers will have to wait 3 months before being given access to non-urgent health care. What do you make of that?
So what I principally make of that is that the people waiting for the response for the asylum demand are sleeping in the streets of Paris and of other cities in France. So we have such operation as the one of this morning happening, but we want long-lasting solutions for these people and actual social care. And we are against the selection idea that people will get in a bus and then maybe send overseas after it.
See, but do you not feel that the government, and as well as many of its critics, have a point when they say, you know, a lot of people are coming in their thousands here simply just to get the good health care which is available in France and other European states? You know, what concretely can be done?
The problem is for us not the number of persons coming, but the way we actually welcome them. It has been shown by the rights defender in France that many few people come to be treated here. But what we can see on a day-to-day basis on the field is that people get sick from being on the streets, from living outside in the cold. They actually get sick and then need bigger treatment. So helping them at the first would avoid such problem.
Okay, briefly, if you can, the government says that new homes, more permanent facilities are going to be provided. Do you believe what they say?
We hope it's true. We have seen many operations like this one, and the only new thing they said to us is that there will now be in the north of Paris a strict no-go zone policy for migrants. There will be police control all the time. More housing solution is what we advocate for, and we hope that these are true.
Paul Alalti from Médecins du Monde, thanks for joining us here on the programme.